thoughts in the chat there. It's really great to kind of get that level of engagement and obviously sort of start us off on this topic for this afternoon. So good afternoon, really warm welcome to today's webinar on male allyship. It is fantastic to see so many of you and obviously quite a lot of new names as well, so that is amazing. For those that don't know me, I'm Sarah Griffiths. I am an ICB CFO, and it's a real pleasure to be co-hosting with Nicola as well. And I think we're going to have a really inspiring hour together today. This is a great topic, and we've explored this a little bit through a number of our webinars and face-to-face events recently. We obviously explore lots of aspects of women's leadership and talk about confidence, visibility, career transitions, breaks, you know, things like mentoring and sponsorship. And throughout all of that, there's one theme that keeps on coming back time and time again, and that's kind of from both women and from our male colleagues as well, which is the importance of male allyship and how we can actually make that work and come to life in practice. And so it's amazing, actually. Thank you to everybody who has invited your male colleagues to come and join us on this webinar today. And again, welcome to all of you who haven't been before. I hope you find it as thought-provoking time over the next hour or so. So we do know that a lot of you share reflections on how much difference it makes when some of our male leaders champion gender equality, call out the instances of inequality, and use influence really to create a really safe and inspiring space for women to achieve their potential. But we also know that others have kind of raised the questions, what does this actually look like in practice? And what does a male ally actually do? How can we make sure it's purposeful and sustained as well? So those are the sort of questions we want to try and explore a little bit more deeply this afternoon. What does it mean? How does it show up in day-to-day interactions? And what role can we all play in building our inclusive teams and cultures across the NHS? And it's not just a women's issue, it's a shared leadership issue and a shared responsibility. So as part of our webinar today, we are really, really thrilled to be joined by three amazing leaders from across the NHS. So we've got Frances Khatcherian, Simon Currie and Cynthia Conquest with us today. I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute or so. And again, excuse me, just to say we're really keen to explore what good allyship looks like in practice, again, not just in words, but in actions. And all three of our speakers will bring different perspectives and their own experiences on this topic too. As we usually do, once we've heard from our speakers, we'll open up for some discussion and questions, so don't be shy. Use the chat to share your thoughts and reflections as we go along, and then there will be an opportunity to have some open conversation as well. And as we go through the discussion today, I'd kind of encourage all of us to think about what allyship means in our own teams and how we can all play an active part in shaping that going forwards. So let's get started then. Let me hand over, I think, first of all, to Frances to start the introductions. Thanks.
Hi all, I'm Frances Khatcherian. I'm the CFO over at Hertfordshire Community Trust, and I'm here because I feel that I got good at allyship from Simon when I worked with him in the national team. So we're kind of here to kind of talk through our experiences of working together and tackling any difficult conversations that we have between us. And yeah, hopefully just making you all feel a bit more confident about what good allyship looks like. Simon.
Simon Currie, I work in the NHSE National Finance team. Actually, before I just introduce myself a bit more, Sarah, just because we seem to be in the frame of embarrassing all of the presenters today, I just want to say your introductions to these things are excellent. I think you introduced the topics really, really well. So thank you for that. I've been working in the National Finance team for, I don't know, long time. I had the absolute pleasure of having Frances work to me for a number of years, and then she left to go do a proper job in the wider NHS. But it was an absolute joy having Frances work with me for me. I think the two of us got on very, very well during that time. when we envisaged this session today, one of the things that we thought we might do, I think thankfully we've moved on from that now, is do a kind of live 360 feedback type thing where where Frances actually appraises all of the things that I didn't do right from a male allyship point of view just as much. But I think I'm part of the reason why I've ended up here today was following the Women in Leadership conference earlier this year. And I was one of a handful of men in the room that day, and it just led Nicola and I then into conversations about what male allyship looks like and what's good and all that sort of stuff, and then how we might broaden that out and so on. So I mean, I'm here. I don't want anyone to think that I'm an absolute master at male allyship. I'm not. The halo behind my head is just the lighting in this room. There's don't read anything into that. I'm here to listen and to answer questions and provide thoughts, a sounding board as much as anything, rather than I don't want to put myself forward as any kind of expert.
And he's also very humble too.
Be tricky. Cynthia, save us.
Right, good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. I think I'm sort of in the role. So my name is Cynthia Conquest, and I think I'm here because I've been around for a very long time, extremely long time. So currently I'm a non-executive director at Royal Papa's Hospital in Cambridgeshire. And in addition to being a non-executive director, I'm the chair of the audit committee. I belong to several other committees at the hospital. I am also what's called the senior independent director, and I'm the lead for Freedom to Speak Up, and I'm also the sponsor for the Race Equality Network. So I do quite a bit at Royal Papworth. Before that, I have spent more than 40 odd years. Please don't try to do the maths. And I've worked across a variety of positions. I actually started as a cashier at Moorfields Hospital, which would have been equivalent maybe to a band 2 now, and managed to work my way up to get to board level, and being a director of finance, and now being a non-executive director. So I've been around a long time in the London and East Anglia regions mostly, although I did do a bit spot of work down in Dorset for a few days. But yes, a long time. And like I said, I think what I'm going to be bringing to this is, when we get to my bit, I'll be telling you two stories, because I think it's really just, I'm of that age where I like storytelling, and that's how I impart my wisdom now to the youngsters in the NHS.
Thank you. And welcome to all three of you speakers. I've had the delight of working with all three of you professionally at some point in my career as well. So it's great to have you here, and you've always sponsored these events and taken part. So a quick question to get us starting to talk about male allyship in a bit more depth. Can I ask each one of you individually, what impact has a particular ally had on your career? If we can start with the Simon and Frances room, I think it'll be a little bit awkward if Frances doesn't say Simon at this point. But you do have free rein to go out with that as well. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it would be awkward. There's a door though, so I could take that instead. No, so I think the point for me, especially working with Simon, was it was about giving. It's not like Simon changed the way I was working, or suddenly he tried to mold me into anything. It was giving me the confidence to be myself and make decisions for myself, and knowing that he would support me. So it's given me space to actually let me come to my own decisions, decide how I wanted my own career to go, and always being a really big champion behind us. And I think this is really important, that we wanted to make sure this came through. This is the kind of leadership that goes across all groups of people, not just women. So it's not just that I was a woman. We give time and let people speak regardless of their background or their grading. And it was really important that then not only did I feel like I could step up, but my team were all better for it too, because we all felt safe and we could all have constructive, safe conversations working through really tricky decisions, and also then portray that to the wider organisation, and then be able to have wider conversations that were tricky with them too, to get to a much better place. Where just by empowering people to be able to have a safe environment has such a knock-on effect to how different teams operated and how we were seen. And also then having the confidence and feeling safe enough to say, I'm looking for a different opportunity, will you support it? And the fact that they were very supportive of it. So knowing someone's got that for you just gives you a huge amount of confidence, doesn't it? Saying, no, you're not ready yet, or absolutely. So for me, it was a bit of a game changer, feeling all the time that I could go forward rather than have people say, which we have had, are you sure as a woman you want more responsibility? How will you manage childcare? That was never a conversation that was had. It was just like, absolutely. So fine.
Yeah, so from my own perspective, I mean, there's one of the things that was really important to me right from the start, right from the moment my children were born, was that I was actually going to be around for my kids. So some of this, Frances sort of talks about me modelling positive behaviour. Some of that is that I also wanted to make sure I was there for my children, so I focused a lot on work-life balance. And I think there's something maybe there about leading by example. That wasn't what I intended at the time, but I've always made sure, I'm working from home, so obviously a lot more common now, but I've always had Daddy Day, we used to call it, when the kids were really small. There was always one day a week when I was always going to be at home. I could take them to school, pick them up again, all that sort of stuff. And I carried that on all the way through. So yeah, modelling behaviours. But one of the points I want to bring out today is that there's a lot of the behaviours that I've heard described on this call are things that sometimes men feel as well. So I don't think we're quite as different as sometimes we might think. And imposter syndrome, the first time that I heard that expression was in a conversation with Frances. But we weren't talking about how Frances was feeling. We were talking about how I was feeling. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was, yeah. So me thinking, wow, I'm up to doing this job. I was just about to go off and do a stint on the vaccines program. I'm actually up to doing this job. And so the importance for me, and I can think of several, including my current line manager, Nikki Briggs, and Elizabeth Amani, having people that you work for who believe in you and quite obviously and make an active point of telling you that they believe in you is really, really positive and empowering, actually, yeah, regardless of gender or race or any other factor.
Absolutely, and that's what I think I was trying to get to. I'm really fortunate that I had Simon as the boss in general, but the whole team are. So it's not just about the fact it's an ally in women. If somebody just sides with a woman, that's not actually being a good leader, is it? So it's really trying to make sure that you think about the kind of behaviour you should expect from a leader, and how it's about not just saying them, but actually taking action to them. And that was the real difference, I think, with Simon. You hear a lot of leaders say they do X, Y, and Z, and actually they don't. Whereas Simon actually let you take things on. He gave you more responsibility. It was that ability then to be able to do it and be able to feel safe talking about sometimes quite difficult things that are going on in your personal life. It's a really safe environment across the team. So it's those leadership behaviours, real leadership behaviours, which is so important.
Thank you. That's a lot to unpack, actually, and we will come back to some of these, particularly what you were saying around the behaviours, both in terms of how you get that trust and safe environment in your team, and also some of the behaviours that you were modelling around work-life balance as well, Simon. I think the impact that has on the rest of the team. Let's just hear from Cynthia, if we can, as well, about what impact has a particular ally, male or female, had on your career, Cynthia.
Thank you. So, like I said, I've been around a long time, so I'm going to take you back to 1981. And that was when the NHS had treasurers, not financially qualified accountants. a time when the finance department in the NHS did not have computers. We didn't have search engines like Google. We had no virtual platforms as Zoom or Teams and everything. And it was a very male-dominated environment. So there I am at 25 years old. And I was appointed as Chief Internal Auditor at Moorfields Eye Hospital. I'd started off as a cashier at Moorfields, and my internal audit experience had been around transactional auditing and reviewing transactions and conducting routine checks and that. I was actually studying for my accountancy exams at the time, and I'd heard of systems auditing, and I thought, what is that? I don't think, but I wasn't sure I was going to put this into practice. So recognizing that my limitations on this, I reached out to other NHS chief internal auditors within London. And I met Eddie Kwan from St. Bartholomew's Hospital, Mark Dillaway from Great Ormond Street Hospital, and a gentleman from Royal Marsden, whose name I, for the life of me, cannot recall. Anyway, these three men, in a male-dominated environment with this woman who they'd never met before, took me under their wing and showed me everything they knew about internal auditing, right? So my treasurer at Moorfields Hospital was very impressed with my work because I was delivering like nobody's business due to these three men, right? And it was, they looked after me for several years, and I grew and learnt a lot in that little process, right? My very quick second story is that several later, June 2005, I applied for the position of Director of Finance at Great Ormond Street Hospital. My first board level role. And it's interesting that Simon talks about imposter syndrome, because I got a big dose of imposter syndrome. Although I'd been doing the job for about 6 months, I'd been acting up as Director of Finance. Suddenly I decided, oh, I can't do this job. Now the Director of Finance at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, for some reason, must have heard about this and reached out to me. And we met to have coffee or something. And he talked me through my doubts and why I was so worried about this. And he gave me the confidence to be able to apply for this role. And I was successful, and I became Director of Finance at Great Ormond Street. Now, these were individuals who I had never worked with, who reached out to me, who gave me confidence and allowed me to do the jobs I could do, and gave me the confidence that I needed. And for me, there was not about gender, it was not about race, it was just people being kind and looking out for a fellow colleague in the NHS community. And I think that is what true allyship is about. It is about what they do for you as individuals and as kind human beings, right? And then all the other stuff then gets sorted out in all of that. So those are my two quick stories.
Thank you, Cynthia. They're fantastic stories. And I dare say you learned so quickly about internal audit because of your thirst for knowledge and your huge brain capacity as well. It wasn't just about what your male colleagues were doing, but it's a really good example of them taking you under their wing. So we've kind of touched on some of this a little bit, but let's go into a little bit more depth so that people on this chat really know what differentiates an ally or sort of a passive ally from an active ally. What does an ally really do, which is different? So things we've said so far around listening, around supporting, around creating a safe space so that one can feel you can talk about your challenges, but also how you want to progress your career. But can you talk about some examples about little things that really differentiate that kind of support? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start with a couple of thoughts. So on any calls, certainly where I'm leading any meetings, I won't have football talk or sport talk generally. No, I mean, it's not an absolute. Nicola picked me up on it the other day. Nicola was saying I like a bit of football talk, in which case that's absolutely fine. But I think the more general point to that is I try to make sure that all my meetings start in a really inclusive way. And if it starts with a conversation that only includes a small number of people on the call, and particularly, I mean, I pick on football because that can be a really divisive one. You can end up with a lot of men on a Monday morning getting into, oh, wasn't that a great game of the weekend or whatever, and you instantly exclude a number of the female colleagues on the call, which then just sets up the tone for the whole rest of the meeting. So I mean, that's one small thing that I've always focused on. And if I could just jump in with the second one, there's also, so we've talked about, I think, things like creating safe spaces and that sort of thing. There's quite a significant difference in managing men versus managing women, and the way that men will put themselves forwards for promotions, advancements, and so on, in a way that women tend not to. And so if you just, and I'm generalising massively in that, but there is something in it. So what I've found a lot of the years is that if I were to just passively pick from the people who put themselves forwards for stretch assignments or advancement or whatever it is, then I think would have ended up picking male colleagues far more often than female colleagues. And so just being aware of that and actively balancing and nudging people forwards. I mean, I don't think I had to do that with Frances particularly. I think Frances was quite ambitious and driven. But I've had over the years, I've had a number of other female colleagues working with me for me that were very capable, but were reluctant to push themselves forwards. And so it's actively rebalancing to make sure that you are actually providing fair opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm going to carry on from that, actually, bring it on from what Simon was saying. So it is, I think that the whole point is about trying to be a good leader in general. So I probably have the opposite I had in the team that I was managing, is that we probably have some men that were unconfident in their abilities and wouldn't put themselves forward. I think probably in my old team, we had quite a few strong, very opinionated women and men who probably then felt a bit dominated by that. So then actually we try and do the reverse psychology and give them the confidence to kind of step up themselves and be able to deal with different conversations. So maybe Simon subconsciously ends up employing a huge bunch of very strong, independent women, and then the men have become a bit more laid back. But it worked. It was a really good team. But then we've actually really there's a lot of people that we've now promoted since I've left as well, into more senior roles as men who are very confident, who didn't have that ability. Or the confidence in themselves to put themselves forward. The other thing that we definitely did as a team that was really successful was, and Simon showed me this, was about trying to make sure everybody speaks. So actually, if people are being too dominant, that's a safe environment, isn't it? Not forcing someone to speak if they don't want to, but saying, oh, actually, so-and-so, I'll say Frances, but there was never a problem with me speaking. But Frances, would you like to speak now? And actually, okay, can we hear from so-and-so? So that everybody felt that they had their voice, even if it wasn't for as long, was valued. And that really changed actually the interaction between the team as well. And it still is. I'm here today, I've come back up to visit them. So it clearly worked even after leaving for over 2 years, and the relationships you built with people definitely has an impact. And I still talk to a lot of them still. So it was a really good functioning team, which I think gives everybody confidence to take themselves forward.
And
Thank you, Cynthia.
If I can come in here. Yeah, so I totally agree with what Frances has just said. I believe it is about good leadership and about being inclusive, regardless of who's around the table. And certainly any meetings that I consider good are the ones where the chair will go around and make sure that everybody's voice is heard, and heard in an equal or equitable way. In terms of discussions around football and things like that. When I worked at Barts, there was this group that did golf, and it all happened to be men, right? And me being me, I'm thinking, why is it we're not including women? When I spoke to all the women, none of them were interested in golf, right? Now, why then should I say to these men, oh, you can't not be inclusive? Because I knew that's where a lot of things got discussed and everything, but women weren't interested in golf, right? When I used to organize theatre stuff, none of the men were interested in coming to the theatre with us. So I think as long as you're inclusive and invite everybody, some of it's going to be male dominated, some is going to be female dominated, but that's okay, as long as everybody knows that if they want to go, they will be welcomed equally. And I think that's the key that we need to be looking at. And like Frances, I think I am a very strong woman. So I think there are times when men might feel intimidated by what's, so again, it is adopting and adapting our ways to make sure that they feel that they can say something without it being seen as them being trying to override what a woman says or anything. So I always say to them, I'm not always right. I might like to think I am, but I'm not always right. And if you've got a strong view, please let me know, because everybody's voice counts here. We're all professionals. That's why you're here. So I think it's all those sort of things we need to think about.
Sarah, were you going to ask something?
I was going to say I'll ask the next question then. Sorry, we're just kind of trying to coordinate between Nicola and I in the background. So yeah, I think kind of some really helpful reflections there. And obviously for me, the bit about kind of the encouragement, the openness, making sure that every individual has the opportunity to comment in meetings is really important and really powerful, and actually a really easy thing for a lot of us to do. And sometimes it's, obviously kind of not it's easy to forget as well. The question that I wanted to kind of put out there was, let's say in 5 years' time, what do we think this is going to look like? What does successful allyship look like in 5 years' time? I guess both for individuals and as, collectively the NHS. It might just be helpful to explore some of those themes.
Shall I go first? Or should I just give a quick view about what I think? So wouldn't it be great if we were just having a talk about what is effective allyship rather than male or female? And it's not also talking about ethnicity or different, I guess, underrepresented groups, that it's all equal. Whether or not that's the number of people, but it feels that everybody's being given the opportunity regardless of race or background or privilege or lack of privilege or education. To me, will we get there in 5 years? Probably not, but that is what we should be. We should be talking about these, about how we drive things forward and make things better, rather than actually trying to bring people up to the same level of what other people get. And that to me is what success looks like.
Yeah, I would agree totally. I think it has to be the norm. We don't have to talk about it anymore. It should be we're at a stage where it's so commonplace that nobody has to mention it at all. I think that's where we should be. But I like Frances, I don't think we're going to be there in 5 years.
And Nicola, did you want to ask the next one?
Yeah, I was actually going to jump in on something that you were saying, and it reminded me, Simon, of the conversation we had at the annual conference back in when was it, June, around what sort of the do's and the don'ts, or the right way of demonstrating these behaviours. So the example that we were talking about, Frances mentioned around encouraging people in a meeting to for their voice to be heard, encouraging someone to participate. When have you done that the wrong way and perhaps learned from that? Or when's it, when has it not been as well received, and what's the right way to do that in a way that gives you confidence that people won't take that the wrong way, or perhaps that an underrepresented group might not feel, you don't want someone to feel patronized, you want them to feel empowered, right? But sometimes I think perhaps it puts people off asking if you feel you're going to be clumsy, or your language might not be well received, or you might fall flat on your face in front of a large group of other leaders. So it's just really, I know we've got quite a lot of male attendance on today's call, which is fantastic, and we asked for that, and part of that was so that we could explore this in a little bit more depth around what's the right way to show your allyship.
So,
yeah, sorry, do you want to come in, Cynthia?
yeah, if you don't mind, Simon, just quickly, I think what we need to understand, a person chairing need to understand the people they have around the table. So if you've got somebody that's very shy, and you know that if you pick on them, pick on them is the wrong, but if you sort of said to them, have you got something to say? You might have to adapt the way you ask that question, because they might feel like, rabbits in headlights and thinking, oh my God, I've got to say something. I'm not going to say something intelligent or something. So sometimes you have to read the room and then pick who you ask to do things on. So it's been emotionally intelligent enough to know who you're dealing with around the table, I think, at times. Sorry,
Yeah.
Simon.
No. I think that's right. I mean, one of the big perils. So I think that the size of the group matters. So if you've got 5 people on a call, then I think asking individuals for views, you can do that really actively. I think on like, I don't know how many people are on this call now. I've lost it. I think there's maybe like 200 people on this call. If you go and pick on somebody now, then I don't know, you might get might find somebody that is quite happy to speak out, but chances are you won't, and obviously then you've embarrassed somebody in front of 200 odd other people or whatever. Or whatever it is. So I think group size matters. I mean, something that you can do is to warm somebody up in advance. So if you're thinking about an individual's career development, and one of the things that individual has expressed about themselves or others have seen is that they are really uncomfortable speaking up in a wider forum, and public speaking is terrifying for an awful lot of people. So entirely understandable. But you can help somebody out in advance by having a plant in the room almost. So whether it be me as chair or ask somebody else to do it, you can warm somebody up to, like, here is a question that you might ask, or here is a response to it, whatever, so that somebody's actually got a bit of time to think about it in advance, and then when the time comes, they're reading from a script. I mean, something else that I'm going to say this a lot tends to fall on deaf ears, I think, with most of my team at the moment. But it's quite a horrible thing to, as a leader, when you're trying to have a broader discussion with a number of people, and you ask, has anyone got any questions, and nobody says anything. You just get that horrible tumbleweed moment. So I think I'd encourage everybody. There truly is no daft questions, because from the chair's point of view, particularly with a large number of people, that tumbleweed moment is horrible. So saving the person asking from that tumbleweed moment is a really positive and powerful thing to do. So don't be afraid about sort of looking silly or whatever. Do just speak up. And I suppose I try and model that as well. I do try and create, when I'm chairing, I try and create a fairly relaxed environment. And one where I will quite often start actually talking about maybe a little thing from my personal life. just to set the scene a little bit, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think there's ways into it, but you have got to tread really carefully. And as Cynthia said, if you just start calling people out in a larger meeting, you're likely to that's likely to have a more negative than a more positive impact. Emotional intelligence, I think you said as well, Cynthia, didn't you? And that I think is key, is really important. I keep obsessing over. There's a comment in the chat from. Sorry, I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't read who put it in. Is allyship really about treating others how you would like to be treated yourself in every situation? I think there's something in that, but I don't think quite. The way that I frame it is that what I'm trying to do is to get the most out of everybody that works for me. So to provide an environment in which everybody is going to flourish, and because everybody is different, what works for me in terms of an environment that I flourish in may well not work for somebody else. So I think there's something about just recognizing, and this is where I come from, is just about all things, recognizing that we are just all people, and B, we're all different. Sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes in really obvious ways, but we've all got our idiosyncrasies. Again, partly why I tend to kick off with stuff about my personal life, just to make it clear that I'm just as human as everybody else, and I struggle with all the same stuff that everyone else does, like getting your kids ready for school and all of that sort of stuff, and arguments with your other half about who left the car unlocked on the driveway and things like that. That's just it. We are just all people. And so I think there's something about just recognizing that and then adapting your behaviors to fit with the person that's sat in front of you. That's the key thing. I'm going to stop talking for a minute.
Yeah, and I'm just going to follow up on that as well. So one of the things that I found really useful as I started to go through the career of leading bigger teams as well, is to really make sure you spend time there's lots of free resources about if it's Myers-Briggs or 16 personalities, but looking at your individual personality and what works for you, and also across the teams. And I think that's regardless of ethnicity, but you can then start to see actually how the team is made up and how different people like to operate, and it helps, I think, you be a much better manager, especially being able to be reflective about your own strengths and weaknesses as well. It's really important.
Yeah,
Glad to see you got your specs on now, Simon, so you can
I have it.
chat.
It was just so funny. I can see Helen Royal's got
Yeah,
pronounced
Helen
that wrong.
put
She's
her
got a
hand up. So
Yeah.
Helen, do you want to speaking of asking of questions from
Indeed, saving us from a tumbleweed moment, Helen.
Here I am. Here I am.
You want to
Cynthia
put your
knows
video
who
on?
I am. So
Yeah.
I've got one thing to say to Cynthia. She made my career in the last 10 years because she made me see my capacity and what I was capable of. So I have a lot to thank Cynthia for. My current boss is also on the line. Thank you, Colin, for joining. So Colin gets the benefit of everything that I learned from Cynthia and how to be myself and how to put myself out there. So some days I think he regrets having me in the team because I don't shut up and I will say it as it is. So those two things. There's a couple of other things that I want to raise. I've put in the chat, there's something what you were describing about it's known as talking in rounds in meetings, and I learned it in a previous organisation that I worked in, and it's like creeping death. You literally make every person speak around the table and nobody is allowed to interrupt. So the really nervous people realise that nobody's going to come back at them because they're not allowed to come back at them. You have to do a complete round before anybody can say, I liked what so-and-so said, or I agree with what so-and-so said. It just creates that safe space. So it's I've put a link in the chat so if people want to have a look. And I also wanted to come back on the point about talking about sport and different things. If Colin and my male colleagues are all talking about sport, football, NFL, blah, 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 which I have absolutely zero interest in, then I just start talking about menopause. And that literally shuts the conversation down. So there you go. There's ways and means. I think when you get into your 50s, which I am in my 50s, you get to a point where you just don't care, because we're here to get on with the job and we're here to ensure that people bring their best, and that's really important. So there you go. There's my feedback and what I've done in the workplace.
Yeah.
Thank you, Helen.
Great.
Thank you, Helen,
Great
for your
comment.
kind words.
Yeah.
I think the thing that is interesting, isn't it, is that what I took from hearing you speak, Helen, is about now I just speak up rather than being told, like, feeling like I should shut up. Some of this is personal confidence too. So it's about having a manager make sure that you feel confident enough in your own attributes that you can show them rather than trying to suppress them all the time. And that's, I think, really important. If you can say, oh, I'm confident, I'm loud. But previously, in previous managers, I was probably said, oh, could you just not talk as much? Can you just be a bit quite not so opinionated? Whereas actually, that's a strength rather than a weakness. So it's about knowing that about yourself and feeling confident enough to speak up about it. And that's what a good allyship, regardless, is. And that's what I hope everyone takes that, if nothing else, that you should never feel you shouldn't be your full self.
Yeah, so I'm just reading Colin's comments in the chat now about calling people out on national calls. Absolutely right, Colin.
Sorry,
very
Colin.
bad. Helen was brave enough to put her hand up, so I was hoping that she was up to come in.
I think it's nice if it's any negative. Positive should be fine, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You can give him praise, and he can be on the next webinar as well. It
Colin
often
is.
happens if someone's recommended. Yeah.
He's a very good boss, very
Yeah.
very good boss, and I will say that, and I say that publicly, and he can take that away. But he is a really good guy to work for. Really good.
Thanks so much. Thank you for sharing, Helen. It's some really, really good points. We would like to hear from the rest of you if anyone has any questions for our speakers or wants to raise a particular point. I'll jump in with a brief question as well. Why do women still need male allies? Does anyone want to take that one?
I'm going to just start on that. So I think as a senior woman, it's the fact that we've probably had to move, especially through that, that times have changed a lot, haven't they, post-COVID, and the work-life balance, and more women are taking kind of control over their careers. So having not just men, but just allies across the piece, I think is really important. I think it's just the fact that as women have started to come up, and there's more senior women now as well, that you've had to have that kind of men allyship, and it's the confidence boost. But I think everybody needs good allies, whether it's female or male, to support them in their career.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's two things in it. I think there is there's the broadest possible point which Frances just said, which is about getting the most out of everybody, allowing everybody to fulfill their potential to the extent that that people actually want to do that, of course. A lot of people are not always looking for the next thing. A lot of people are quite happy where they are. So again, sort of balance, understanding all of that sort of stuff, but there is something about helping people fulfill their potential. And then when you overlay that with an equality and diversity, or look at it through an equality and diversity lens, there's then recognizing, as I was describing earlier, there are some people that push themselves forwards very actively. There's a lot of people that don't. And so if you want a workforce which is diverse at all levels in all ways, then I think some degree of allyship, of pushing people forwards, is really important. Pushing them forwards, is that unfair? Encouraging, supporting. And what I say, I mean, there was a few years ago, there was somebody that worked for me that I did very, very actively push forwards. Because I think she was feeling like she didn't have the confidence to take the next step. I thought that she could very comfortably take the next step, and now has done, and is done a great job at it since. So I did really actively push that individual to take that next step. A lot of the time, yeah, encouraging, creating the right environment. The thing that I said about recognizing differences in people and then responding accordingly, I think that's key, because pushing somebody that doesn't want to be pushed is going to be hugely counterproductive. Some people, like good lady to my right, just don't need pushing. They just need a tiny bit of, I don't know, support, encouragement, or whatever. But I say everybody needs different things. But I think, Nicola, I think that's my answer to your question.
Thank you.
If I can come in.
Oh yeah, Cynthia, go for it.
Yeah, so I totally agree. You need to understand the individuals and know where they want to be, and everything, like Simon just said. Because I've been around a long time, I have mentored, encouraged, supported male and females going through the NHS system. And one of the things I've always been very keen on is that if they're good, then we want to keep them in the NHS. So I try and do everything in my power to make sure they stay in the NHS. And sometimes it means that they don't go for a director of finance role. Sometimes it means that they might be a good deputy. Sometimes it means that they might be a good financial controller. And everything. You identify what their strengths are, encourage those strengths. You try and improve on their weaknesses, and everything. But at the end of the day, it's the individual's got to decide it. But if we're being fair, we're being equitable around all of these things, then that's where we need to be. And I think that's when then people grow very well and do well in their jobs.
Thank you.
Said.
So, yeah, absolutely. I wonder if it's worth, we've got a couple of hands up, Nicola. Is it worth kind of asking for kind of questions from the audience? I know Emma is keen to come in. Do you want to ask your question or comment, Emma?
Yeah, thank you. I've also had the benefit of working alongside Cynthia. Nice to see you today, and your very many words and support of encouragement and sage words. My question is around, there's been a lot of discussion today about getting to know people, and as we are going through a significant change and restructures across the NHS, just your words of advice about how people approach that, because we're not always going to know the people we're working alongside or potentially competing with. So how should we approach that, and maybe, you know, what are the different areas that we should consider as we're all going through quite a significant change in the NHS?
Great question.
So
yeah. Do you want
yeah,
to go,
thank
Frances?
you. So the thing I heard from that the most is about competition and who you are going up against. I think the advice I would give is I would only worry about yourself and what you'll bring in. I think the thing is everybody has such different skills and different strengths and weaknesses. You know, I think when going for job interviews, I wouldn't even look at who you're going up against. I would just focus on yourself and focus on your responses and what you can bring to the organisation. If you're the right fit, you're the right fit. I think that probably links back into, I just want to bring in something that somebody put into the chat as well about expressing interest of wanting to move on without showing that you don't care. I think that is absolutely the right place to be having a conversation with your line manager. I don't think, if you're saying in the NHS especially, being able to be open that you want to move on, there shouldn't be any sort of conversation that can't happen in a safe, supportive way. I would suggest that if there's any negative or detrimental impact from that, then I would carry on looking, because it's probably not the right culture to be working in the first place. But if somebody came to me and said, I'm looking to move on, I want to move on, I'm really supportive. In fact, I'd help them do prep and interview questions, because if the longer we keep people in the NHS, it's one family, right? That's it. It'd be a shame people feel so unsupported they leave the NHS. That's a travesty.
Please, yeah. And if nobody ever moves between organisations, in doing so, in leaving the role that an individual is in right now, that then creates an opportunity for somebody else to move up into that role, either within the organisation or from outside. So that sort of people moving around is very, very powerful in terms of sharing ideas and our collective growth and so on. So I think I'd be really quite disappointed to find that there was a leader anywhere in the NHS that wouldn't respond in the way that Frances described, certainly within the finance community. I think that would be a bit tragic.
I would also add that if you have a bad leader, because there are bad leaders in organizations, that you then try and find somebody else who can help you mentor and work your way through through that, because I've had one or two bad leaders, but I was fortunate to have a network that I could then talk to other people who then could encourage me to do whatever. But one thing I always tell everybody: if you've got a bad leader and you cannot influence them, then leave, go somewhere else, because you'll never thrive under them.
Absolutely. And I can't not, in case we run out of time, do a gentle plug for the 1HS Finance and HFMA courses. I know we're running out of time, but coming from somebody who's now sitting at CFO, I've done many of them, and I still have that support from different levels of different courses that I've done. Sometimes it's not even what you learn from it, it's the network and the people that you speak to. So if you haven't, or you do, but please just carry on going on to all of those 1HS Finance and HFMA courses. They are so invaluable with these really hard times, to have that network behind you, to be supporting you on decisions. And you know, it's hard, isn't it, going home and talking to your partner saying, oh, it's a really tough day, whereas when you spoke to somebody else who's in it with you, it's much easier to understand and relate. So anyway, I'm sure we've got more hands, but in case we run out of time.
Thank you. Thanks, Frances. Thanks, Cynthia. Carol, do you still want to ask a question? I think you've got your hand up. I'm just going to put the spotlight on you. If you can ask a quick one, so because we are getting towards the end.
It's just a quick comment. I think I'm also a member of the Cynthia fan club.
There's a lot of you here in attendance today.
Cynthia was one of my first managers when I was green, working in the NHS at Barts Hospital. And so I just had to say, I really, really appreciate everything that you did, because everywhere I've been, I remember you as a role model. And one thing that I do remember for Cynthia was we went through some tough times. You know, you run ledger reports, they don't look good. But Cynthia always had a smile, and she used to laugh, you know, she used to laugh about stuff and just make you feel not so pressured. So thank you, Cynthia. And I just wanted to make that comment. I really appreciate the time that I worked with you. So thank you.
Very kind, Carol. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Carol, for that. I think is there anyone who's not in the Cynthia fan club? We should set up a separate network. Simon, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, I do. And so the chat's just moved on, so I've lost the comment that I wanted to pick up. Oh yeah. This one for not directly linked to allies, but relating to a few of the comments. How do you speak your mind and be open and honest without being seen as a troublemaker? I think it can be a really fine line sometimes. I just thought that was a really, really interesting question, and we can't do it justice in 3 minutes, but maybe for another time. I think the things that I might say on it quickly are just there's something about tone and about language. And I think what I would particularly say is don't assume you understand somebody else's motivations, or what's behind something that somebody has said and done. I'm seeing that quite a lot at the moment, that people are inferring negative intentions in something that somebody else has said and done, which actually weren't intended. So be careful about making assumptions, ask questions, explore other people's views, and then when you as you get to a point where you're really clear that you do understand somebody else's viewpoint or whatever's being said, done, proposed, talk about, or whatever, when you get to a point that you feel that you understand it, at that point then you will also be able to really constructively comment on what's being said, but do so with kindness and respect. We're all people. Keep coming back to that. It's like my line of the day, isn't it? We are just all people. So everything you do, just do it with kindness and respect, and think about how, if you were going to be on the receiving end of what you were about to say, think about how you would respond to that.
Thank you.
I'm going to add one thing else into that as well, is if you feel really emotional about it or very strongly viewed, do not put it down in text or on an email, call somebody or Teams them, because the tone is so important. And also don't be reactive. So write it down before you speak to somebody, make sure it says what you wanted to say so it doesn't come across. And I'm just going to come back as well. Simon, what's one thing you learned from a women leader that changed how you lead? I'm going to let Simon take this one in a minute. But one thing I will say is that when I joined, there was leaders who were women above us and stuff. And actually, it was sometimes really tricky too. So I think it's really important that when we talk about women or male, it's the leadership behaviours that they have rather than actual individuals, because you can have really poor female leaders too. Who can be very aggressive and be driven about their own agenda. It's about trying to make sure that you have somebody that is understanding and supportive. And that's what Simon is. And Simon, did you want to say? So specifically.
So well, I've had both. I've had really positive male leaders, really bad male leaders, really positive female leaders, really bad male leaders. So so the full range. So exactly as Frances said. I'm going to point to I think I named drops at the start already. Nikki Briggs and Elizabeth Amani are just absolutely brilliant leaders, and I think the thing that I've taken away from both of them is just how open they both are about their personal lives, which then just humanizes them. Is that even a word? But you cease that. I think you cease to be sort of less scary as like the big bad leadership person, and much more human if you start talking about your personal life. I mean, I've always done little bits of that anyway, but I think maybe nowhere near as much as Nikki and Elizabeth do. So since I've been working for them, I've started sharing more about my personal life and what's going on and all that sort of stuff.
Thank you so much for that. That was a great question, Archana. Thank you. So just to sort of summarise and bring everything together, because unfortunately we are at the end of our session. However, we will be staying on for sort of 10 minutes after for those that want to join us. But some fantastic points coming through in today's meeting around, like you've just sort of said, kindness and respect, and true allyship is a key part of leadership. It's not about helping women per se, but being a really good leader and leading inclusively so that everyone can perform and belong. I just want to say a massive thank you to a few people here, to Sarah as my co-host, and to Frances, Simon and Cynthia for being such fantastic speakers and for really sharing and being open with your own lived experiences and how you lead. And pleased that you two didn't fall out as well. You've managed to still, you're still sitting together at the end of the session. And thank you to everyone that's attended today and everyone that's promoted it to their teams as well. We actually broke a record today, and that was more than 200 people on one webinar. I think our highest before that was 160, 170. So it shows it's a topic people are interested in and speakers people want to hear from. So thank you so much for being part of that and for recommending it. Just a small plug for our next webinar. I haven't got a date yet, but Sarah and I are working on the content of this. It will be in January. It's kind of like a reset, new year, new ideas type thing. And the theme will be from burnout to balance. So it's on the issues around resilience, burnout, overwhelm. And I think many people feel like that in NHS finance, not just at the moment, but has been like that for quite a considerable time as well. So a lot of challenge, a lot of concern about your role, about your career, overwhelmed, not enough hours in the day, managing conflicting challenges outside of work as well. So we want to run a session or so with about 6 speakers and hear from them, their experiences, perhaps some things that, we can't promise a silver bullet or a solution that will make things great for everyone, but there might be little snippets of advice that people can share that you can benefit from, or at least to hear stories and know that other people are in the similar position to you. So please keep recommending us. Thanks so much for tuning in today. And if you do want to stay on for another 5 minutes or so, we will be here. But otherwise, thank you.